They say that in the quietest corners of Ireland, when the moon glows pale and the wind carries the scent of rain, an owl's cry means more than just a call of the wild. To some, it's a warning. To others, it's the last sound you hear before death itself comes calling. They call it the death owl. And in Irish legend, its arrival marks the thin line between the living and the dead. For centuries, Ireland has been a land of whispers, stories passed down by firelight, where every creature carried a deeper meaning. But few beings captured both fear and fascination quite like the owl. Known in Gaelic as Cailleach Oidche, the night hag, the owl wasn't just a bird. It was believed to be a messenger between worlds, a watcher who crossed from light into darkness. In some tales, it was a guardian spirit, but in others, darker, older tales, it was something far more ominous. A soul eater, a herald of death, the death owl that comes before the final breath. And in one haunting legend, it didn't just appear before the dying, it visited the living. Long before Christianity reached the Emerald Fields, the Irish people lived close to the land, to its creatures, to its spirits, to its shadows. Every whisper of wind, every cry of a bird had meaning. The owl, in particular, was a creature of night, and therefore mystery. It could see through darkness, move in silence, appear where none expected. And so the ancients believed it saw things humans could not, spirits of the departed, omens of fate. When Christianity spread, those old pagan beliefs twisted and merged. The owl became a symbol not of wisdom, but of sin and punishment. Medieval Irish manuscripts describe owls nesting in church ruins as if they were drawn to forgotten souls. In one 13th century text, a monk wrote, "The owl keeps company with the dead, for it no longer belongs to the day." But it wasn't a tea until the 1700s that villagers in County Clare began to speak of something stranger. Sightings of an owl that appeared before tragedy. An owl with black-tipped wings and eyes like fire. The locals called it an Fáileán Bais, the death owl, and its legend spread like fog across the Irish countryside. The story begins in the year 1723, in the village of Kilfenora. A shepherd named Seamus Kavanagh returned home late one night, his boots soaked from the bog, his lantern nearly out. He was only a mile from his cottage when he heard it, a cry that stopped him cold. Not the call of a common barn owl, but something deeper, hollow, like a scream trapped inside a whisper. He looked up and saw it, perched on a dead tree by the crossroads. A massive owl, its feathers the color of storm clouds, its eyes glowing faintly red. Seamus crossed himself, muttering a prayer, but the owl didn't move. It only stared. And then it cried again, a sound so sharp and mournful it echoed through the valley. The next morning, the village bell rang. Old Bridget O'Malley, Seamus's neighbor, had died in her sleep, and when they carried her coffin to the churchyard, an owl was seen perched upon the chapel roof. Over the next months, it happened again and again. Each time someone in Kilfenora fell ill or passed suddenly, the owl was seen nearby, always silent, always watching. They said it didn't hunt, it didn't eat, it only waited, as if it were not of this world, but sent from it. Some called it a curse from the Morrigan, the Celtic goddess of fate and death, often seen as a crow, but capable of taking any winged form. Others whispered that the owl carried the souls of the dying, and that to hear its cry meant your own name had been spoken by the dead. Years later, Seamus told his son he'd seen the owl once more, the night his wife passed away. This time, it was perched upon their cottage roof, and when the dawn came, it was gone. No one ever found its nest. No one ever found its body. Just the sound of its call echoing through the hills. Today, locals still whisper about the death owl, though few admit to believing. But ornithologists and folklorists who've studied the legend say there may be truth behind the fear. The cry of the Irish barn owl is unlike most. Not a gentle hoot, but a screech, sharp and human-like. To villagers of the past, alone in candle-lit cottages, that sound could easily feel supernatural. And perhaps that's the real magic of the story. Not that the owl brings death, but that it reminds us how deeply humans have always feared what we cannot see. Still, in some places, when the wind is still and the fields are quiet, farmers claim to see a shape gliding across the moonlight, too large to be a barn owl, too silent to be real. Legends like this endure not because we believe in them, but because deep down, we want to believe. We want to think there's meaning in the silence of the night, that the rustle of wings in the darkness is not just nature, but a message. And so, even now, when the owl cries over the fields of Ireland, some still whisper an old prayer, just in case. Because maybe, just maybe, the death owl still visits the living,